Stavroula Mavrogeorgis was my grandmother, and she still inspires me every day. She is the kindest person I've known, and what is even more amazing is she's had one of the hardest lives I've known. Today we celebrate the life of my Yiayia, and I am honoured to tell her story, pieced together from our conversations. Stavroula was born in 1939 on a small Greek island, Limnos, amongst the pandemonium of World War II. She always liked to tell me she was an excellent student and her writing would often be published in the island newspaper. "I wish I kept a copy of one of those newspapers of Akimo," she would always tell me. Education was something that had immense value to my Yiayia, something she would later toil hard to give her children. However, she had to end her education at grade 6 as her family was poor and needed her help. She was only 14 years old when she ended her formal education, and she told me it was one of her biggest regrets. At the age of 17, she left everything she'd known and loved to travel across the globe to Australia to marry a man she'd never met. She instantly knew her husband was not the man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with, so within that first week, she went to the priest to have the marriage annulled. In 1969, she met Con, my handsome papu over here. He was from the Greek Navy and jumped ship, searching for a new life in Australia. She married Con and had 2 children. Education was that gift that eluded Stavroula, but she was determined that her children would be given that opportunity. Now Papu worked at a factory and she is a cleaner. Of course, she had friends with children who chose the local public school, but she was determined to toil long hours to give her children, Mina, or Theomina to me, and Anastasia, my mum, to go to the Catholic school. Homework was extremely important to Yiayia, and as motivation, she would remind her children almost daily that all her money was going towards school fees. Nothing like a bit of guilt to get the job done. All who knew my grandmother knew she had a kind and humble heart. There were many examples of this, but I'll tell you a story about the little old lady. She met an old lady with no husband or family, living alone. Every month, she invited her over for lunch. This little old lady loved coming over and was just so happy to eat with the family. When my mum asked, "Why do we always have this old lady over?" Stavroula replied, "My heart aches when I see her." For a few years, Stavroula worked in an aged care facility as a cleaner. She noticed that the residents would have very few visitors. So on her day off, she would visit the residents and bring them home-cooked meals or freshly squeezed juices. She would bring them socks and blankets for them in the winter and listen to their stories. She would massage their limbs for them and move their frail bodies to stop the painful bed sores. She already had one of the hardest jobs you could find, but her heart ached with sadness, not for herself, but for them. Her children grew up. This is the part where I come in. Her youngest, Anastasia, met a boy called Adam and decided to get married. There was a problem. This boy was Australian. She wasn't too thrilled, but she accepted him into the family when he took the 6-month catechism course and turned Greek Orthodox under the watchful eye of Father Leslie, approved by Yiayia. 2002 came around with her first grandchild, me. She was very excited, and explainably so. Like any good Greek girl, Anastasia named me after my grandmother. Not Stavroula, but the other one, Eve. This didn't mean her love for me was any less. 4 days after I was born, Mum and Dad went back to work, and I was left in the care of my loving Yiayia and Papu. Each morning, my mum would drop me off on top of a basket of dirty washing. In the evening, she would pick me up. Now I was clean and fed, or overfed if you ask my dad. I was sitting on top of the same basket of clothes, but now the washing was clean and ironed. Back at home each night, I got to play with Mum and Dad and practice my new sentence of Greek. Dad was keeping up with me, for a little while. 2003 and their second grandchild came about. This one named after Stavroula, or in English, Ruby. Ruby and I were two very loved grandchildren. Since Mum and Dad worked long hours, we spent most of our time at Yiayia and Papu's house until we came school age. Once we were in the school, Yiayya's load did anything but lighten. Keep in mind she was still working as a cleaner and had to cook for the whole family, clean the clothes, iron the uniforms, fix the ripped shorts, sew on the missing buttons. She was also our chiro, our physio, and our GP. Sorry. Massaging out our knots in the backs and legs, cleaning our cuts with metho, and looking after us when we were sick. And just basically applying metho to all situations. She thought methylated spirits had special healing abilities. Most of all, Yiayia was an endless fountain of love for Ruby and I. If we came home for a bad day or we had a fight with Mum, you could always count on Yiayia siding with us, listening to our problems and telling Mum we were right. Dinner was served hot and fresh at Yiayya's house every night. Spanakopita, moussaka, yemista, but the core ingredient was always the same: love. And the more we could eat, the more they loved us. Later, Dad would run Ruby and I to school, telling us he was trying to run off all the fat Yiayia left on us. Yiayia and Papu came on a lot of our family holidays. And that says a lot, because my dad is Australian and he wouldn't want to go on holidays with his in-laws unless they were really special. And Yiayia was. 12 months ago, we found out Yiayia had cancer. Mum dropped everything from that point forward. She subsequently found out the cancer was stage 3 pancreatic, and the doctors predicted she had 1 to 3 months left. That was this time last year. She did chemo, and thankfully we got more time with her. Chemo was quite successful, and even when Yiayia lost all her hair, it grew back. Very cute, white and fluffy. I was really sad when she dyed it brown again. Recently she tried radiation, but that was brutal and didn't help much. Yiayia was so strong she continued cooking and cleaning for her whole family and remained well enough to travel. So we took her to Hamilton Island and the Sunshine Coast. To be honest, she didn't really care where she was, as long as there was a buffet. We thought she was so well. None of us even doubted she would make it to the end of the year. We told ourselves, we still have time to learn her recipes, to hear her stories, to take her to Greece again maybe. 2 weeks ago, we were for the shock of our lives when Yiayia went to hospital and never came back. The day before, she'd gone grocery shopping, looking for specials. We were shocked when she got to the hospital. We had no idea how sick she was. We hired a hospital bed and put it in our house, hoping she could be cared for there. Last week, we took her home twice, but she was never well enough to stay the night. The high levels of morphine she was on meant she was just beneath the surface of consciousness, only coming up for visitors or doctors. Cancer is awful. It is truly terrible to watch Yiayia in her final days. I think we can all be in peace now, knowing she is out of that physical pain. Having a role model like her opened up my heart to injustices. She loved hearing my ideas. She loved reading my blog articles. She loved my search of recognition for people I thought were dealt an injustice. There is a Greek saying, your grandchildren are twice your children. I am sure I am twice the person I am because of Yiayia. Thank you, Yiayia.